Well, every piece has arrived. That's it. That's the whole update. Everything's here. So today, we're going to find out what this thing actually sounds like. Welcome to Piece by Piece. I'm Brian, and this channel is all about rebuilding when life falls apart. Each week, I work on something, usually a puzzle. And we talk about one aspect of putting a life back together. Last episode, I laid out all of the pieces for this guitar and talked about how every piece of gold hardware came from someone who stayed with me through the hardest season of my life. My daughters made the pickguard and the strap, but there were still pieces that I was waiting on. But before I pick up a single tool today, I want to talk about something that I carried for a very long time, because I don't think I'm the only one who's carried it. Early on in my rebuild, I had read something, a general guideline, a pattern that researchers had noticed. That on average, after a breakup or a divorce, that it will likely take roughly 1 month for every year that you were with someone until you feel normal again, until you start to feel like yourself. In my case, that was 22 years, which meant about 22 months until I would feel like life had stabilized again. To put it plainly, I hit that mark and blew past it. And I still felt empty. And that brought about a lot of questions. What's wrong with me? Why am I not over this? Why am I still feeling it? Why am I not finished yet? I shared these feelings with some people and they meant well, but their response was, well, that's just an average, or some people just take longer. And while that may be true, it wasn't helpful. Because the problem with a timeline is that it implies that there's a destination, a moment where you're done, where you're restored back to your old self. And if you haven't arrived there yet, you're behind. You're late to your own recovery. This guitar is going to be finished today, but I won't be. I've had to come to understand that being finished and being far enough along are both okay. And truthfully, only one of them is available to me right now. There was a morning a few months back where something shifted, and I want to get to that. But first, let's start building. Some of the work on this guitar happened before today. The wiring, the electronics inside the body, that was already done. It was soldered and tested and ready to go. There was work that happened before the camera was on, before this episode even existed. Pieces that were ready before the instrument was. Coming back isn't one moment. It's not some switch. It's actually a long accumulation of many small things, most of which happen when nobody's watching and nothing feels significant. Some mornings you just wake up and realize that you actually slept through the night. That's a win. Some weeks go by and you realize you haven't cried as much. Not because you decided not to, you just didn't. Some conversations you realize that you're present in again. And afterwards you simply think, I was there for that. None of these things will feel like progress from the inside. They'll just feel like a Tuesday. But that's the part that nobody warns you about. That a comeback doesn't announce itself. You don't get a notification. You just keep building quietly, consistently, without much evidence that anything's actually working. And then one day you look up and something looks different. James Clear spent years studying how things actually change. And what he found was that tiny improvements accumulated consistently compound into something unrecognizable from where you started. 1% better every day. It's the math, and it actually works. I think we all want dramatic transformation in our lives, but more often than not, it's the slow build that actually works. When I designed this guitar, I knew that I wanted the gold hardware to mean something, and not just look like kintsugi, but actually be kintsugi. Every piece of gold hardware on this guitar will represent someone who held me together. The pickup, the bridge, the knobs, the output jack, the strap holders. Each one is someone who was there for me when the institutions were not. I'm not going to name every contributor individually right now. I'll put their names in a thank you at the end of the video. And you know who you are. But I would like to talk about what they represent. Because these are the people who kept texting when I wouldn't respond. They're the people who showed up before I even knew I needed them to. They're those who didn't require me to be okay before they stayed. Different people contributing and even making different pieces of this guitar. And now, every time I play this instrument, I'll be reminded of those people who held me together. Dr. John Cacioppo spent years studying the neuroscience behind our social connections. And what he found goes much further than most people realize. Isolation isn't just emotionally painful, it's physically harmful. And connections are more than support. They're physiologically restorative. Sure, the people who stuck around were good for my mood, but they were actually good for my body, my nervous system, my capacity to even rebuild at all. We're not built to mount a comeback alone. You may think you're strong enough, but it's simply not how we were made. My mom texts me every morning. She has since everything collapsed. Every morning for 2.5 years, she's asked, "How are you doing today?" And I would answer, "Fine, okay, pretty good, getting there." But one morning a few months back, I texted, "I'm good." She ended up calling me, and she said, "I've been waiting years to hear that from you." I didn't realize how big of an impact saying I'm good would have. It wasn't a moment that I was preparing for. It wasn't that I had decided to finally be good. I just typed out the answer that was true that morning without thinking about it. It just happened to be very different from every answer that I had given prior. And you'd like to think that that meant that I had arrived at my destination, that I'd finally made it out. But all it was that enough pieces had fallen into place, that my answer had finally changed. This guitar is the same. No single piece makes this instrument. Each piece is necessary. None of them are sufficient on their own. It becomes an instrument when every piece is present. That morning a few months back, enough pieces were there. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk has spent his career studying how the body registers and processes change, trauma, and the recovery from it. One of his findings is that healing often registers physically before our conscious mind catches up. The body knows before you do. You don't always choose to come back. Sometimes you just wake up one morning and realize that you already have. I didn't intentionally choose to say I'm good. Something had already shifted. I just hadn't noticed yet. This guitar is my rebuild token. A totem, if you will. It's just a physical object that marks that my rebuild was real. It's something that I can hold, that I can touch. Something that says, I'm still here, and this is proof. My rebuild took nearly 3 years, and a lot of people. And I wanted this totem to represent that. It's elaborate, intentional, and probably more than most people need. But yours doesn't have to be this. It could be a Lego minifigure that someone gave you during a hard season. A piece of jewelry that you bought when you made it through something tough. A tattoo. A painting. A plant that survived when you were sure it wouldn't. It can be something small that simply carries the weight of what you've been through. Not to remind you of the pain, but to mark the fact that you made it through it. That kintsugi logic applies here too. The break is part of the object, so don't hide it. Let the token or the totem carry the break and the repair together. So here's the only practical application that I have for you after this episode. Find your rebuild token. Find your totem, or make one. It doesn't have to mean anything to anyone else. It just has to mean something to you. Something that says, this happened, but I'm still here. As part of rediscovering who I am, I began songwriting again. And so I did write something for today. So it kind of feels appropriate to plug this thing in and hear how it sounds.
Staring at the ground while the only sound is the silence found when facing all my worst fears. The gripping in my chest, never could have guessed there'd be nothing left from everything I'd held dear. It's all broken to pieces. The ribcage hand that won't uncurl. I am shaking at the threshold at the end of my whole world. Don't tell me it gets easier, just tell me you'll stay. Don't promise me the morning, just sit with me in the grave. Fading from the room, wrapped inside a tomb, through an afternoon that never turns to night. My face inside the glass, watching moments pass, living in a trap and I can't even think right. Can I pick up my pieces? Hard against the ribcage hand that's in the air. There's a shaping in the darkness even when I'm unaware. Don't tell me it gets easier, just tell me you'll stay. Don't promise me the morning, just sit with me in the grave. I didn't call, you came anyway. I couldn't speak, you heard anyway. I had nothing left, you gave anyway, and helped me pick up my pieces. You held together my pieces. Hard against the ribcage hand that's open wide for another who's still with me, someone I can recognize. Don't tell me it gets easier, just tell me you'll stay. Don't promise me the morning, just sit with me in the grave.
I'm working on a full production of it all, so stay tuned. This guitar is finished. Every piece of gold on it came from someone who stayed. My daughters, my dad, who brought full support, my mom, who texted me every morning for 2.5 years, still does. I didn't come back alone. I came back held together by many people who showed up before I even asked them to, before I even knew that I needed them to. People who stayed when I had nothing to offer. People who kept calling, even when I wouldn't answer. And with enough pieces in place, one at a time, a rebuild can be completed. This guitar will stay with me forever. Not as a trophy, but as a token of my rebuild, a totem. Proof that the breaks are part of my story. Proof that there are people who stayed with me even in the darkest and hardest times. And proof that with enough pieces in place, one at a time, rebuilds are possible. Thanks for watching. If this episode found you at the right moment, I'd be grateful if you shared it with someone who's rebuilding. And in the comments, I'm asking, who's been a piece of your rebuild? Someone who was there when the institutions weren't? A name, a word, whatever feels right. I'll respond to as many as I can. Oh, and one more thing. If you're in crisis right now, please don't wait. Call or text 988 for the National Suicide Prevention Line, or text HOME to 741-741 for the crisis text line. These resources are here for you, and you don't have to do this alone. Until next time, let's keep rebuilding, piece by piece.